introduction to this topic. Today, we can see that the world is dangerously close to passing to 1.5 degrees threshold, beyond which humanity and other species are exposed to existential and irreversible negative impact. To avoid the most severe climate impact, global mean surface temperature must be stabilized at or below 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. Impact are already being felt across the world, so it doesn't choose country, but it impacts directly all the world, and the progress towards to address the climate crisis is insufficient. It's a conclusion done by scientific result working with regarding climate change. That's why private sector adoption of emission reduction targets can play a significant role in addressing emissions within corporate valuations. It means that companies, especially companies working with higher carbon emissions, should take measures because these higher emissions are really taken from them. And also, these companies have a responsibility to finance mitigation beyond their valuations. Mitigation, it means that they need to reduce at the same time their emissions and also to buy carbon credits to get the net zero impact. The transition towards net zero, aligned with the business model, is a long-term and thus a company embedded emissions that occur during that transition will accumulate in the atmosphere, contributing to global warming and driving physical climate impact. So that's the main point we need to see nowadays, and also to get the net zero, to attain the net zero by 2015. To continue the presentation, let's just see a brief video which show the carbon credit implementation. Let's continue our presentation. So we have seen that there are different measures. We can different carbon credit project, one from nature-based and the other one from technology. In our case today, we will see the nature-based project, so carbon credit project application in agriculture. And this is the plan of my presentation. First, I will show you the definition of carbon credit in agriculture. I will also present the key practices in carbon project development, the benefits of carbon project, especially in agriculture, and also, and lastly, the financial incentives for farmers. Let's continue. What is carbon credit application in agriculture? So, as a definition, agriculture causes about 11% of carbon emission. It's an example from the European Union greenhouse gas emissions. And the share is not or because the two major emissions are nitrous oxide and methane, which are very powerful greenhouse gases. In agriculture, we can note three main types of gas which are involved: nitrous oxide, methane, and to a lesser extent carbon dioxide. Farming methods which tackle agricultural emissions are often referred to as carbon farming. And if we see these pictures, the greenhouse gas application in agriculture, there is a main source of emissions in agriculture, about 381 million tons of carbon, and from land use and land use change and forestry, with about 16.7 million tons of carbon. And the sink, it means that the mitigation of carbon, it's about this 301 million tons of carbons. For agriculture, the main applications are wetlands, grasslands, cropland, and organic soils, and finally forest application with agroforestry. We can see that agriculture plays an important role in mitigating climate change. That potential includes implementing certain practices and technologies which can reduce in emissions from agriculture, increase in carbon storage, and replacement of fossil fuels by biomass energy. An example of biomass intent for energy generations comes from crop residues or from dedicated crops, for example, sugar cane, and it can be burned directly or turned into biofuels. The main potential of global emissions and the mitigation potential from agriculture, the main which have higher emissions is land conservation, and the mitigation potential is 3.5. After that, we can have also cropland and pasture, livestock farming. We can see that they have higher carbon emissions, but on mitigation potential, it's also higher, 3.12. and 0.27. Another project with also burning organic matter, it can have higher emissions, but also it can reduce at the same time uh, carbon. The most important is also bioenergies, which can reduce efficiently the carbon emissions. Its mitigation potential is about 16. What are the key practices in carbon project development? To see more application and to see exactly how we can implement this carbon credit project in agriculture, in upstream. We can see fertilizer production, which includes emissions from processing of carbon and nitrous oxide at the production plant site. The mitigation consists on simple decrease in production due to the reduced consumption of fertilizers by farmers. Another application is also land conservation, land conversion, which includes carbon emissions linked to converting forest and wetlands into agriculture land. The mitigation measures consist on reducing these emissions, which may involve three kinds of measures: avoiding converting forest and wetlands into agriculture land, reforesting degraded agricultural land that has become less productive, and also setting up an agroforestry system by planting widely spaced trees among crops or by cultivating plots where the tree coverage has thinned. Another measure is also due to animal feed productions, because from methane it can have higher emissions. And so in reducing or taking measures to reduce the emissions from methane, we can make a mitigation. At farm level, cropland and pasture, which correspond to the nitrous emissions linked to the use of organic and mineral nitrogen fertilizers, to the open air waste emissions, and to legumes. The mitigation consists on uh, uh, consists to limit the use of nitrogen fertilizers, and also planting legumes. Water management also has an impact on the nitrification process. At livestock farming, breaks down into the two sources of emissions, which are enteric fermentation and waste management. Enteric fermentation emits methane, which is a form of cellulose, is digested by ruminants, for example, cattle, sheep, goats, and a member of camel family, through the microbial fermentation. Animal waste emits methane when organic matters breaks down into an anaerobic environment, as well as nitrous oxide, especially if ventilation is poor. Another source of emissions is also where waste management, it means liquid waste or solid waste manure, has an impact on the methane and also nitrous oxide. The mitigation consists on using liquid waste, slurry, or solid waste manure has an impact on methane and nitrous oxide emissions, and the methanized livestock waste, which can reduce 80% at the storage stage. Another example of mitigation measure in agriculture is also rice growing. The flooding of cultivated areas, and therefore the absence of oxygen, encourages the growth of anaerobic bacteria and therefore the production of methane from fermentation. The mitigation consists on drying the soil between growing periods. Energy consumption is also another measure. It has higher emissions, which is linked. Sorry, I think.
Sorry, Niavo, is that your screen was stuck, so I have to put it down. Can you?
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
Now it's okay now?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So another one, as I said, is from energy consumption, which is linked to heating greenhouse and livestock ponds. And the mitigation consists on better turn machinery and less use of different agricultural machinery as a result of simplifying the way the land is farmed, which reduce the carbon emissions. Another example is also carbon flows between the soil and the atmosphere, which can result in a zero balance, either in terms of storing carbon in the soil or releasing it into the atmosphere, depending on change to the source carbon stores. These situations involve a specific mitigation mechanism, as the process may involve both reducing emissions and increasing carbon sequestration. At the downstream level, we can see an application on bioenergies, which consist on replacing fossil fuels. So bioenergies seem like a real catalyst for reducing emissions. They do, however, they have some limits. For instance, they pose a problem in terms of competing land use. In fact, dedicating energy crops may generate high carbon emissions if it is necessary to clear a forest to plant them. They may also create tensions in agricultural prices when they replace food crops. But as a mitigation measure, we can see that bioproducts replace energy incentive raw materials, which is also another way to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. So, what are the main benefits of this carbon credit project in agriculture? We can see four main benefits. First, climate change mitigation, as we have seen that agricultural practices contribute to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Another improvement is soil health, which enhance in soil structure, fertility, and water retention. Biodiversity enhancement, which increase habitat diversity and ecosystem services. And lastly, economic resilience, which have financial benefits through improved yields and market opportunities. On these pictures, we can see first devastating agriculture, which can cause global warming, extreme weather, rainfall intensity. These are the issues we can get from devastating agriculture. But by taking measures to to reduce this devastating agriculture, we can use, for example, biochar, biostimulants, which are green mitigation efforts. And these mitigation efforts will lead us to revive the survival, which can get net zero. Net zero is, it means that the carbon emissions are zero, and it is the call from the United Nations goals for 20 and 50. Some examples are sustainable agriculture, fertile soil, and clean environment. Now, let's see the financial incentives for farmers, because this carbon credit project can provide financial cost for farmers, and also for companies working with them, because it encourage to engage carbon credit development. It contributes to climate change mitigation and also sustainable agriculture practices. But beyond this, another companies uh, from developed countries, they need to reduce their carbon emissions. So in that way, they need to buy carbon credit project. They need to buy carbon from carbon credit project, and this is done by a voluntary carbon marketplace, which is where companies and organizations can purchase carbon credits that are not regulated by government mandated emissions reduction schemes. And these credits can be purchased by enterprise to offset their own emissions and promote sustainable practices. And also, they are verified through some reputable carbon project registries with certification processes like uh, like FERA or Gold Standard. In this picture, we can see that there are companies who purchase carbon credits, and also another one who sell the carbon credits. And there is a voluntary market in this marketplace where the carbon credits will be sold, and there is a carbon market for it. Let's see the price of the project. The fair trade minimum prices for eligible project tips. The main cost, or it depends, and it varies depending on the type of project. For energy efficiency, it's about 8.20 euro per ton of carbon. Renewable energy, it's about 8.10 ton of carbon. And forest management is about 13 euro per ton of carbon. This cost already include investment cost, project cost, carbon cost, and business margin cost minus the revenues. So we can get the fair trade minimum price from this calculation. It's just an example of prices, but the prices really depends on the market, and it can be changed. But it an example to show you that the carbon credit project is a business, and also it can get advantages to making it. Let's see a case study to show you exactly how to develop a carbon credit project, especially if you are in developing countries. It's very important. An example is an agroforestry project in Kenya. It's called the Kuzamiti Agroforestry Carbon Project. It is based in Kenya, as you can see in the map. Smallholder farmers planted trees on degraded land. In that case, they do agroforestry, And it means the integration of trees and shrubs into agricultural systems, resulting in a more sustainable and diverse landscape. These agricultural practices can lead to different benefits to the environment, social and the local community. But here I've only shown you the environmental benefits because it's essential for soil conservation and also prevent erosion, especially in the country where it is implemented in Kenya. It also promotes biodiversity conservation by providing habitat for a variety of plant and animal species. Lastly, it can help to reduce climate change by sequestering carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it in trees and soil. The trees absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, which helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and combat climate change. What is the financial impact of this project? Carbon credits can be, um, after calculation and after choosing the right methodology for this certification and also the certification body. Here we have chosen FERA. So it can issue 15,000 carbon credits for the total year of a project, and the revenue is about 500 and thousand 500,000 USD through sales in compliance markets in Europe. And out of this revenue, it can get also additional benefits, which enhance biodiversity, providing shade for crops, and a diversified income source through fruit and timber sales. So we can see that developing a carbon credit project can have a higher financial impact. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and if you have questions, I'm here